That way I can put this out there for everybody to listen to who can't be with us. Diet Sunkist, Breakfast of Champions. Good morning, Ryan, David, Kevin, Jose, gentlemen. Trying to see if I get feedback from anybody.
Good morning.
Good morning. Let me turn on the chat so I can see it in case any of you have questions. How is everybody? Is everybody well? Is everybody's family doing well?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Caitlin, thank you. Yes, I'm doing well. Oh, actually, I'm not. My baby boy, my 6'2", 180-pound baby boy, um, injured his shoulder when he was 9 years old, and it dislocated a few times, and we thought we were past that. Okay, thank you, David. And he was playing ball and went to grab somebody and ripped out his shoulder. So he has surgery next week. My son's going to have his first major surgery, so I'm a little bit nervous. Nervous Nelly. Yeah, my allergies are a little better. Thanks, Kevin. I was dying last week. It was embarrassing. Um, and I still don't know what it was. I kept checking those little weather apps because sometimes they have pollution and allergy stuff, and it may have been something called ragweed. I don't know. Oh, thank you, Caitlin. I've had a bunch of surgeries in my life, so it's no big deal. But when and he's 15, when he goes through one, it's always worse when your kids have something happen to him. But hopefully he'll be better and ready to go. Thank you, Selena. Okay, well, folks, it looks like there are 14 of you and well, the 15 of us total. That's totally okay. I really appreciate those of you who are able to get in here and participate and listen and ask questions. I think it helps. And I have received very positive feedback from those folks who are not able to be here, but are able to listen to the recordings. So, um, any of the questions that you ask, there's probably another 20 people in the class easy who are thinking that same thing or wondering about that same question. So feel free to not only ask questions for yourself, but represent, so to speak, with what are going to be questions the rest of the class has. So, and this is being recorded, obviously, so we can put it up for the rest of the class to see. And I don't believe that the chats are, but I would still advise you to be careful with that. I think I actually have to separately put up the chats, which I don't do because I guess maybe I could and should, but I just have never done that. I always just put out the actual recording. So it's 3 or 4 after. I usually wait till about 5 after, but I'm going to go ahead and get started. Let me just say to everybody that today I do have a meeting following this one, so I have a hard stop at 11. Sometimes we'll go 5-10 minutes. If there's questions, I stay here and answer the questions until we're done. But today I am going to have to put a hard stop at 11 o'clock. Um, so I've got a couple of things I want to make sure that I go over, but before I do, I'm going to start as usual by saying, is there anything top of mind questions that you really want to ask me before we get started or before we get off on a tangent that's really important to you? You can either put it in the chat or just ask me directly.
I have a question.
Yes.
So on the template, the first section, there's a part for the mission statement. And then on the second part of it, there's a part for mission of the firm. And so my group and I, we were discussing as to where, like, if we would basically just write it in two different places or if there was like a difference.
Yeah, so I keep forgetting to share this with you. I just pulled it up and I forgot to share. Hold on just a second. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, so please point out to me what you're talking about. Right off the bat, mission statement discussion and vision statement
Yep.
discussion.
So the top one, that mission statement, and then on under company description and status, the second question,
I'm sorry,
if
let
you
me
keep
find
scrolling,
it. Scrolling down, okay. Yeah, so this is
right there.
the research part. Yeah, so good question. Thank you. Let me clarify this. Remember, you don't get graded on the research, but you can lose points if you don't do it, right? And if you look back up here at the rubric, all of this research is you have to do this to be able to answer these questions up here. And so there is going to be some redundancy. And if you find a statement that you put up here, yes, it would be put into research. It is going to be listed twice. Okay. But this is where you do all the research. And why are we doing that? I don't want to go off on this too much, but I do want to explain. What we have found over the last couple of years is that students do all this work on the research and their heads down, they're buried, they're working really hard, and they get it all on paper and they submit it. And then they step back and they can't really tell me what the important stuff was. They've been working so hard to try to get the document finished. And what you need to be able to do in the team project 3 and in the final PowerPoint is to extract from all this research, okay, what's the important stuff? So I looked at the geographical focus. Well, that's actually not a big deal. Or I looked at the financial status. Well, it turns out they're okay. To be able to extract that and summarize the important stuff, we found to be problematic. So what we're doing now is actually trying to help and say right up front, you know, tell me the important stuff. And in the mission statement, let me go add somebody here. I am screen sharing. I can't do that right now. If you find a mission statement, put it, right? If they have listed one. Now I need you to tell me whether you like it or not, whether it's good or not, based on the lectures that we've had. If it's good, or if you couldn't find one or it's not good, you need to write a better one here and then provide your robust explanation. That's what I'm trying to do on these two. Okay, so yeah, there will be some redundancy. Is that what you were asking,
Yes, that helps.
Anna?
Thank you.
Okay, sure.
Yes.
Kevin, you wrote me a text question real quick. In chapter 3, you talk a little about tangible and intangible resources. You list some examples for both, and I was wondering if those are kind of what you're looking for in the journal. So Kevin, if you would, which part of the templates do you think I might be asking for those? Because yes, I would love for you to be able to identify, if you think that it's important, the tangible and the intangible resources, right? Because that means, hey, I read it, I get it, I understand it, and I'm now going to share with the instructors, you know, some examples of that if it's relevant. But Kevin, can you point me to the part of the template where you are asking that about? Hey, Dr. Pertel, welcome. Damn, you have a lot of rooms in that house. Impressive.
It's, yeah, I enjoy the dark wood look.
Yeah, I do too, actually. Kevin?
Yes. So I was just wondering, like you said, like the culture and stuff can be intangible and stuff.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
if I was just wondering, like, is that what you're kind of looking for during our research? And then like we just had to find how the company shows like intangibles as in their culture and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I'm going to share this template because I think you're asking me specifically about the template, right?
Yes.
What part are you referring to? Because this is the summary stuff up here. Okay.
Yeah. So it's at the bottom, the third research part. So
The
it'd
primary
be,
products.
no, you go down more towards the, let me check the template too. It is in the analysis of the firm's competition, resources, and competencies.
These down here, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, so the examples that we provided in the lecture of, and you just gave one, it's a great one, right? The intangibles, the culture. That's exactly what we're asking for here, right? Is please list at least 5 tangible resources you believe are important to building positive income competencies. Well, let me just sort of share a tangible resource that you have to be in the cruise line industry. You need to have a really big ship. Okay, it doesn't mean you steer it well. It doesn't mean it's a good ship that everybody else likes. I mean, so you know, there are physical things you have to be able to be in the industry. And I'm being a little silly with the big obvious one, right? You have to be able to have a port of call where you go to and the permits to go there. And I don't want to start rattling things off for you here, right? But the intangible things would be culture, it'd be reputation, right? It would be relationships with suppliers. Now, not the contracts, not the financial position of your company, but your reputation, your relationships between people, between your company and theirs. These are examples of things that would be tangible and intangible resources. Does that help at all?
Yes. Thank you so much, Dr.
Sure,
Forrest.
absolutely. And really, why are we asking this question is, and I don't want to undermine this, is the resource identification the really big part of this assignment? It is not, right? Because resources are going to drive to capabilities, which are going to drive to competencies. And what we're really trying to get you to do is just remember what we've taught, explain it to you, double check, make sure that you can do it, what the difference between intangible and intangible resource is, and help drive you towards the questions below, which are, okay, they've had these resources, they've developed these competencies, now we get to evaluate whether they're good at them or not. And one of the things that's a little different than the book, if you remember, is the book goes back to the Prahalad and Hamill pieces back from the early 80s about core competencies driving competitive advantage. Technically, that's not true, right? According to the VRIS framework from Barney, to have a competitive advantage, it has to be rare. And rare is distinctive competencies, right? So core competencies, you're good at it and it's important, but others may be equivalently good at it and you have competitive parity, right? But if you have a competitive advantage, you have to be good at something that others aren't, which is distinctive or rare, distinctive competencies. I'm not going to give another mini lecture here, but that's really what we were trying to drive towards with this section in the template. So you asked me a question, I go off on it, Kevin. Sorry, dude. Other questions? See, I just scared him off. He asked a good, simple question. I gave a 25-minute answer. Nobody's going to want to do that again, Clint. My bad. Okay, well then let me touch on a couple of things. I think you guys had more knowledge than you shared in the last template, personal opinion, okay? And I think that you did more work than you represented, some of you, right? However, I have a question, so I'm going to stop. But remind me, I'm going to come back to robust answers. Yes, Andrea.
Okay, sorry. I
good.
had a question for number 1 on the internal template where it says analyze the firm's competition resources, where it says key competitor identification. I had a question for one of the bullets. It asked to list their historical revenue and net profit margin growth rate over the last 3 to 5 years. I think it's a little bit more down.
So there's financial status of the firm. Let me get into the research section. I think that's what you're talking about.
Right. I think you just passed it.
Well, this is the 3 to 5 years historical.
Yes, I had a question for that. Are you expecting us to list like the most recent 3 to 5 of the rate of the revenues?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah. Yeah.
So is it going to be 3 different numbers? I guess that's what I'm asking, like 3 to 5 different numbers for that, or is that just like a certain number that we're supposed to combine for that?
Okay, I think I understand. Let me quickly answer a
Okay.
couple different ways. Okay.
Okay.
One, because I think this is going to come up again. I think it's actually a very helpful question because I want to refer people to the last 2 or 3 pages of your financial and econ supplement lecture.
Yes.
Okay. And I kind of show you what I want there. Okay. And so I'm going to, the quick answer is I want an average across those years, not an annual. If you want to, that's great. Like from 2016 to 2017, the revenue was this, revenue was that, and the growth rate was this. That's fine, right? And then you do 17 to 18 and an individual growth rate. That's fine. But what I want to have is I want to have the growth rate across those years. So if you give me 4 years, I want a 4-year CAGR. I want a 4-year growth rate. Okay. And the reason we're trying to do that is we're trying to get a baseline. We're trying to get a trend line. And any one year might be above or below that trend line, right? So any one year is not giving me a lot of information upon which to then kind of see where we're headed. So I would really like to have 5 years instead of 3, just because you get a little bit better trend line. And what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to unshare, and I'm going to take you, you know what, instead of sharing each one thing at a time, I'm going to share everything and try to be careful here. These are the last couple of pages of the second part of the Econ and Finance primer. Okay. This is right out, this is your lecture, right? And so I just went, it's not tough to find these. Okay. I just went to Yahoo Finance as of September 26th and took their basic income statement. This is basic, this is not their income statement, right? This is a very condensed one, but I'm fine with this. And I copied in this data. And I went into this whole thing in my lecture, if you remember, about what TTM stands for. It's trailing 12 months. It's not 2020. And you can't use it as 2020 because it's not, 2020 is not done yet. But I went through these and I actually pulled this data. Gross profit gets solved. In fact, I'll open my Excel spreadsheets if you guys want me to show you how I did this. Okay. And then the normalized EBITDA was taken right off that site. I then show you how to calculate a CAGR. CAGR stands for compound annual growth rate, not just growth rate. Okay. And this is the equation that you put into Excel. So what I was really trying to do, and Dr. Patel and I talked about this, and you know, how much of this should we give you? We're trying to give it all to you. Okay. That equation is what you use to calculate these. Now, I only did a 3-year CAGR. Why? Because I don't have 2020 yet. And if I go from 2016 to 2019, that's only 3 years. It'd be great if you went back to 2015, 2014, but I'm not trying to crush you guys with a bunch of numbers. So at least do 3-year, 4-year if you can, in terms of CAGR. And how did I solve these? I used this equation in Excel. Now on the next page, and this is going to be big in project 3, we're even telling you how to do it. This part is what I just put on the previous page, right there. It's previous page copied. You have to estimate what 2020 is going to be before you can forecast off of it. And so we walk you through, and you guys are going to not only need to put these purple numbers in on Team Project 3, primarily what we're going to be asking, what we're going to be grading you on is, why did you do that? Why did you choose that number? What was your rationale behind that, right? So your revenue, you expect it's going to go down in 2020. Yeah, it's called a pandemic. It's called the government stopping you from being able to go cruising, right? There are reasons why, you know, your revenues might go down from 2019, okay? But they're going to go back up again. Well, maybe, right? Is the economy going to come back quickly enough that people are going to have the money to go spend? Are the attitudes and the socio-cultural norms going to change sufficiently that people aren't afraid to get back on? It's that logic that we need you to explain behind why you came up with your numbers. Now, Does that actually, Andrea, address your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
The reason that I took your great question and expanded on it is because you guys are going to really need to know those last 2 pages. And I've had other questions in emails where people ask questions that were like right off those 2 pages. And I just want you to know that those are there because it's going to save you so much grief when you try, when you guys try to go do these forecasting. And if you guys want, and send me some emails or put something out there. And you know what, Dr. Bertel, I will check with you on this, but I think I'm willing to a point to actually put out my spreadsheet. I just don't, I do want them to do some work on this though, right? So let's chew on that. I don't mind giving them some of that, but they need to explain each of those purple numbers. So
I don't know, Dr. Corey, when I was an analyst in these types of roles, unfortunately, I didn't have those spreadsheets afforded to me. I had to create those spreadsheets. That was part of the process. And I just opened up Excel with a blank page and had to create what I needed to create. So yeah, let's talk about it.
you're mean. That's what you say.
That's straight up real life. I'm just keeping it real.
Okay.
So,
Anyway, we'll noodle on that, folks. But if nothing else, those last 2 pages actually give you the numbers you should use at least through 2016. Copy and paste, or just type them in, and you've got the starting place for it. Anything else? Andrea, that was a good question. Kevin, yours was good too. Thank you. Okay. Robust answers. I think that's where I was. So I think a lot of people missed questions or missed points because they did this research on the back and then just sort of put, frankly, somewhat perfunctory answers in the summary. Well, it's the summary that you get graded on. You have to do the research to be able to answer the questions and to be able to extract from all that work what the important stuff is. And so, like I said earlier, and Clint, I don't know if you were on the phone, but the reason we added that summary section and put the points up there is because we were finding, I don't want to beat this dead horse, but we were finding people were just so engrossed in the data that they weren't able to stand back and pull the important stuff out. And for Team Project 3 and 4, it's really pulling the important stuff out that's most important. So that's why we added it. So I tried, I think in the last Zoom meeting, but I'm going to do this again to be clear, and please pass this on to your teams. Okay. I tried to add a bullet that says, when we ask you to describe, we are hoping for a robust answer, because you need to take all this knowledge you have gained and explain and rationalize. So 1 paragraph is probably not enough in terms of the summary. Pages is probably too much, but we're expecting a few paragraphs of explanation. It depends on the question, right? But explanation, here's the logic, here's why we considered this but chose not to. You know, there's got to be some oomph, some robustness to help us understand the rationale behind some of your answers. Okay, so that's why we're making a big deal this time, is to make sure there's more clarity. Okay.
I would add one thing, Dr. Corey. Make sure that when you're answering those summary boxes, you answer everything in the summary boxes. I would say at least a third of the teams answered like the first bullet, maybe the first 2 bullets in a box, but didn't answer the rest of the box or respond to the rest of the box. So, and I also had a couple of teams that didn't use the template at all. They just turned in a Word document. Yeah, and so that's bad, and it's bad on a few different reasons. Number one, it's very difficult on us to grade something like that. We've got to pull the template back over and compare it. Number two, the teams that did that only answered like 1 bullet a box, so they weren't even, it pulled those teams off. So make sure you're using the template that's provided. Don't go off the reservation and provide some Word document or PowerPoint document or other format. I was, when I was younger, I was early in my career, I always tried to impress the boss, and I would always try to do something that, was exceeding expectations, always trying to exceed expectations and trying to wow the boss, climb the corporate ladder and all that good stuff. And one day I had somebody come up to me, one of the vice presidents of the firm, and that person said, Clint, you can't exceed expectations until you first meet them. And I didn't understand what that meant. It made no sense to me. I mean, I'm not trying to meet your expectations, I'm trying to exceed them. What he was saying was, if you don't at least do what we're asking you to do, and you're trying to wow us every time with some glamorous thing, you failed. You've not done your job. And yes, it's impressive whatever you turned in, but it's not what we asked for. So make sure you follow those questions, those bullets, and meet the expectations. That's the goal of this, is to meet expectations.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Pertel. Okay, so unless there are other questions, what I'm now going to start, and Dr. Pertel, if you have some things that you think are really important to get across, I do have a hard stop today at 11. Okay, then please let me know, and we can, because we're going to sort of go through some things that I think are going to be relevant to the students, but I'm open to changing what and how and when. Okay, so one of the first things that I want to do, oops, you know, after all this time, you'd think I'd be better at this, Clint, but I'm going to share before I start talking about a document. Schedule, folks. Let me just remind you of some things. And I have a bias about, I got a chat here. Let me scoot that out of the way. I have a bias towards seeing my schedule in a calendar form. It may be old man syndrome, I don't know, but it works for me. So let me just remind you where we are. We're here on October 8th. The project window for Team Project 2 is Monday and Tuesday. And this time your exam is after the project is due. It's going to be the same, by the way, when we get, oops. It's going to be the same, by the way, when we get down here. Okay, the exam's going to be after the team project. But Monday and Tuesday is when the window is open, and your exam is on Friday. And I think that's the same in your class, Dr. Pertel, the timing. Okay.
It is.
So we are right here. I sent out an announcement a few days ago reminding people of timing and things. And here's my recommendation. My recommendation, and it shouldn't be too late. It might be for some of you, depending upon how, if you haven't gotten very far in this yet. My suggestion is your document, your Team Project 2 should be due internally tomorrow. Okay, everybody in your team should have their first draft to the team lead, who should then distribute the entirety of it, right, to everybody by tomorrow. That way you have a chance to, okay, take a breath and then start your editing process. You know, do we have robust enough answers? Are the answers to number 2 the same answer generally as we're giving in question number 4? So it's consistency, it's logic and robustness, it is grammar. And remember, some of what we're doing here in these first 2, the external and internal, you're going to see them again in the SWOT analysis, in the strategy formulation. The SWOT is the strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats. Strengths and weaknesses is your internal side. Opportunities and threats is your external side. We're going to ask you to extract the really important stuff and be able to condense it into the really important stuff that you guys now need to go build a plan to deal with. SWOT. Okay. And then there's the gap analysis, comparing what you've got internally to what's going on in the external. So that's why this stuff matters. If you put something in Team Project 1 and you've decided after additional research or after our comments back to you, that really wasn't the best set of answers in terms of opportunities and threats, change them for Team Project 3. You're not stuck to something you put in Team Project 1. Okay. You need to be able to update it and extract from it. But if you make the same mistake you made in Team Project 1 and 2, in Team Project 3, then that's on you at that point, right? So that's the timing of this. If you don't have it by tomorrow, it should probably be by Saturday, because you really do need to have time to review and edit before you turn this in. Any comments, Dr. Pertel?
So it's going to be very unfortunate if your teams have not been working on this until now. Or if you're going to wait till next week. I did have a group contact me with concern that they hadn't got started yet. That's too bad. That's really too bad. we've allowed what, 3 weeks, Dr. Corey, for this assignment to be
Yeah, this
completed?
has been a faster turnaround, but it's still 3 weeks. And yeah,
3 weeks. It's 3 weeks. So there are no extensions. If your group chose to not do that, then that's that group's prerogative. Now that said, again, I think Dr. Corey and I would both ask team leaders, if you still have individuals on your group that are bogging you down or are not participating, we need to know that. Dr. Corey and I have decided, or at least I have in my class, individuals who choose not to participate in a group, they're going to bias their group to give them zeros on the peer reviews. And so that individual will be set up for failure. So in my class, for individuals who received zeros, the groups made a decision. In some cases, those individuals were excluded from the group. They were removed from that group. And the only chance they have to succeed at this point is as individuals, because their group will continue to give them zeros. They have no chance. So at least as an individual, they have a chance of completing something, and then resting on their own work. So again, group leaders, if you're still having issues at this point, after the peer reviews, after the group contract, after the numerous discussions, and in my class videos where we talk about accountability, group accountability, individual accountability, we need to know that, because that's going to be a problem. Again, you have to have a C in this class to graduate from UNT. It would be so unfortunate for individuals who choose not to do the work to have to stay another semester because of this. So anyway, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but that's really important, everybody.
yeah. So let me support what he just said, and let me clarify one of the things. We only have had this situation in 2 groups, Dr. Purtell, because there were some people who didn't really quite do what they needed to, but they've had a talk, and the team is now happy with them, and that's the way it's supposed to work. And I want to talk to those teams who had that and have dealt with it. Really proud of you. That's how it's supposed to work. What Dr. Patel is talking about is a situation that doesn't get resolved, and that one person will have to do all of the work for all of the case material by him or herself, and that's not good, right? So okay, so this is a schedule, and we've had some really good questions about the internal environment template so far. Are there, and I'm going to pull that template back up and just remind you, because there was a good question at the beginning you missed, Dr. Bertel, and that is, we ask some things in the research that we ask again at the top. Yeah, that's going to be some redundancy, because all this research that you do down here, yeah, we're going to extract some of it and pull it up. Make sure that you check the rubric, folks. What are the biggest points going to be coming from on this answer? It's going to come from that question number 4. Mission and vision are important. And remember, we made really strong distinctions about mission and vision. Vision has to have a time frame, or it's not a great vision, right? All of that. If I'm setting the highest level goal for the company and I never set a time frame, I can never fail, right? Because I'm 30 years in, yeah, but I'm still working at it, right? So if they want to be the #1 provider of luxury travel, I'm making this up, okay, by the year 2030 or 2025, now you got a vision statement. Now you have something, and you determine if you've achieved it and a time frame. And mission statement, if you don't tell me what business you're in, you're not giving me a mission statement. I need to be able to read that statement and know that that person's in the shoe business or in the cruise business or whatever. Okay. So that's why we're saying, hey, just because they have a vision statement or you found one doesn't mean it's a good one. Right. And so that's why we're saying, hey, do you think this needs to be improved? If the answer is no, cool. But you might want to say, we don't believe it needs to be improved because we believe it meets the criteria for a good vision. It has this, it has that. And as a result, we believe it's a good vision statement. That's an answer for that bullet. You don't just put good or bad, yes or no, right? Here's why we said it's good, okay? And make sure you provide a robust explanation. Now, are you going to get paragraphs of explanation for a vision statement? Probably not on this one, right? But I expect a good explanation of why you thought it was good or not. And if you created your own, explain to us why the first one wasn't that great, what you put in the second one, why you think the second one is better, that sort of stuff. Okay. Primary strengths and weaknesses, make sure you provide a robust explanation. This is the important part, okay? This is the part where we're really trying to get you to extract. Now, can competencies be negative? Right out of your lecture, at least in my class, Dr. Patel, yeah, they can, right? You can be really bad at something. Right. And we actually sort of break that up into two parts. Let's say you're okay at something and other people in the industry are okay, but somebody else is really good at that and you're at a competitive disadvantage. Well, would you call that a really great competency? Well, no, not if other people are a lot better than you at it, right? But is that going to kill you within the next 30 days? Probably, it depends what it is, but probably not, right? That's a deficiency. You've got time to go change the things to try to catch up and eliminate the competitive disadvantage. If you have an 85% debt to cap ratio and the pandemic hits and you suddenly have no revenues, is there a chance you may not be able to make payment on your debt and you get put into default and put into bankruptcy? Yeah. Is that a serious problem with your financial strategy? Absolutely. You made yourself too vulnerable and it can kill you right now. That's an incompetency. Okay. That's a really bad strategy you've put together that can hurt you now. Okay. So you need to explain, prioritize, and you need to list, prioritize, and give robust explanations of why you think these are good things, that these are really good things, that these are potentially distinctive competencies, or not just deficiencies, but incompetencies that can get you hurt right now. I'm going off on this because this is where your points are coming from, right? And we expect to see paragraphs on this one. Okay, I'm going to stop then on the template, unless there are, there is one other thing that, now, Dr. Patel, I'm not sure if you saw this. I sent it out to my team. You can send out something similar if you want, but I actually sent out a one-page illustration of how to do the reference and citation thing. And so I'm going to pull that up because I got a few more questions on it. Okay. Look, you guys are right. Typically, we want parenthetical citations with alphabetized references. Absolutely, okay? But we don't have the space for that in the template. So what we've asked you to do is just put a little number saying, hey, here's where a site would go, and I've got all the information in the back. Well, if you put a number, I need to be able to know which one are you talking about. And that's why these are listed numerically at the end. Here's a silly example, okay? University of North Texas is the best school in the history of the world with the number 1. And this is superscript is all that's called, right? It's raised up a little bit. Do you have to superscript it? No. Okay, but it's a nice way of doing it. I know that there is a citation for this. I go down to the number 1 and Jay Zinni wrote, "We are the best." Okay, that's the source. It has some of the best professors in the world, especially in the College of Business. Well, there's another citation, Jay Johnson, College of Business. Okay, I got it. Dr. Prahalad in particular is truly outstanding. Well, that's a self-published tome. Okay, but at least I know where that came from. Then what happens if you have the same source again? You can handle it a couple of different ways. How have I said how great UNT is? I mean, these are just silly, right? But let's say it's from the same source. You can use that same number 1 again and just reference the same source. That's the easiest way to do it. You gave him a number, you gave that reference a number the first time, you can use that again. If you wanted to, you could put a 4 there and then just put the same, put a 4 down here and put Zinni the same information and copy and paste it. It's just that just sort of adds volume to your reference page, but you could do it. Okay, so this is an illustration so people can see what we're talking about. We're doing that because we just don't have the space. Okay. any questions, because I'm going to cover one or two things from the lectures. Dr. Pertell, are you getting any questions about that reference and the illustrations and the formatting? And I
No,
don't
I'm
know.
not, but it's a good idea to send that out. I'll send that out to the team just so they
Okay.
have an idea. That's a great idea. Can you
I-
forward that to me as well?
I do. I think it was in my announcement. I think you get all my announcements and it was attached to it.
I haven't seen that one for some reason.
Okay, I'll send it to you offline.
Yeah, if you don't mind. Yeah.
Will you post the citation document in Canvas? Yeah, absolutely, Nicole. Where will I do that? I'll do it in this week. I'll do it in this coming week. The current week, and I'll put it out there. Absolutely. Dr. Pertell, yes, you have a potential speaker. And before I lose time on today, I'm open and willing to bring that to my students' attention. You and I haven't spoken about this yet, so this is a little bit cold, but yeah, and in fact, are you offering extra credit?
Yeah, I am offering extra credit because it's not during a normal scheduled class time, and so for those who choose to attend, then I'll provide
Okay,
at least
well,
my students with that extra credit.
what I will do is I will offer it too, but for those who can't attend, I'll come up with something to give them a chance to have an extra credit, as well. So, okay, so everybody in my classes, spread this. I will send out an announcement as well. And Dr. Pertell is going to give me the information and I will put it out on Canvas and I will put it out in an announcement. But I'm going to ask Dr. Pertell to give you a minute or two or three about what this is. And I too will provide this as extra credit points opportunity. Okay, and I will visit with him, find out how many points he's given. We'll make consistency here, but heads up to you, this is a brand new extra credit opportunity for my sections. Dr. Pertell, who do you have coming and what day is it?
Absolutely. So it's really exciting. So UNT is aggressively pursuing some new relationships with industry. One of those companies that is expanding their presence in the Dallas area is Kroger Corporation, the grocery store. They have actually thrived through COVID. They are hitting record numbers in terms of their financials, operating measures. They're hiring like crazy and whatnot. And so UNT is working to expand our relationship with them for internships, jobs, et cetera. I met one of their executives. His name is Frank Romero. He's the VP of merchandising for them. He reports to the president of Kroger, who is going to speak to one of my classes on October 26th, the evening of the 26th. I have a number of guest speakers throughout the semester in a number of my classes. But anyway, this one's pretty exciting. He and I have been discussing, what would be of interest to the general classes that I teach. And there's three things that I've asked him to speak to that he's excited to speak about. The first one is how COVID-19 has positively influenced Kroger's supply chain, their merchandising strategy, and overall business model. That's obviously very relevant to this class as well, with respect to external environment and how that is impacting them. The second one is how Kroger has leveraged corporate entrepreneurship and corporate development. What we mean by that is mergers and acquisitions, joint ventures, any sort of strategic relationships, partnerships. How have they leveraged that to create a sustainable competitive advantage, particularly relating to their merchandising and supply chain strategies?
Wow, that's kind of interesting, actually.
Yeah, exactly. Now, he warned he obviously can't speak to anything that's in process now because it's non-public information and that would create a illegal situation, but he can talk to historical stuff. And then the third one he'll speak to is how Kroger merchandising and supply chain teams work collaboratively to identify new suppliers, particularly smaller entrepreneurial companies, how they establish mid to long-term relationships with those companies, and how they develop sustainable strategic partnerships or relationships with them. What we mean by that is one of the ways that companies who are in a mature industry find competitive advantages is they work with small startups, fast-growing startups, or startups that have some sort of a competitive advantage. By partnering with them, they're obviously able to differentiate, especially if they're a first mover of some type. And many times that turns into an acquisition. That's what I did through a lot of my career. So those are the things he's going to speak to in my class. They will have extra credit. Dr. Corey, what I'm doing, requiring of those who can't attend the class is very, very similar because this is a Q&A session as well, is they're welcome to find an executive of any company, interview them, and ask 3 interesting questions related to COVID and their strategy. Doesn't have to be a long interview, but it does need to be recorded. And if they upload that, then they'll get the extra credit points.
Okay. First of all, wow, that's very cool. Those are big questions, and for somebody to be able to share that within an intro to strategy class, I don't mean to get all giddy in front of my students here, but that's cool stuff. But that's a lot of stuff. How long do you expect this to be? When
Yeah,
does it
he's gonna
start?
have it prepared. He'll have it prepared. So yeah, that class starts at 6:30 on Monday evening. So I'll actually be live in Denton, but the requirement will be to attend virtually because of COVID, positioning or requirements for spacing. So the class starts at 6:30. I will probably start his session at 6:45 just to allow for any technical issues or whatnot. I anticipate it'll go about 30 minutes, and then we'll open up for Q&A. We'll try to keep Q&A to 15 to 20 minutes max. So he's trying to keep his total time to about an hour. If he needs to go over 30 minutes, then certainly he will, unless he sends me some different information. One thing I do want to mention, Dr. Corey, is that again, Kroger is growing, and Kroger is growing fast, and Kroger is growing in the DFW area. I have told my classes, and
Does that
not
mean
only
jobs?
not only do you get an opportunity, to get some easy extra credit here, but also, a great question and interaction with Vice President Romero of Kroger might put something in his mind that remembers who you are, especially if you introduce yourself before you ask the question. And if you were to apply to a position in his group, he might remember who you are when you do that.
Dr.
So
Pertell,
tend to hire who they know.
are we recording this?
It will be recorded. Yeah, it will be
I say
recorded.
that because he's not going to be able to remember all those names, but he may be able to go back, right? And say, oh, that was an interesting question. Who was that? And be able to go back to the recording and see who it was.
Sure,
right?
sure. Yeah, we anticipate some great dialogue. I've asked my class, the live class, to prepare actually, I've asked all my classes to prepare 2 good questions, as they prepare for that in the event that they have an opportunity to ask that question. Obviously, with a lot of people, not everybody can ask a question, but we'll certainly take it from a kind of a first come, first serve sort of approach.
Fantastic. I will, this won't go out until probably end of day today because I have meetings I have to run to, folks, but I will get this out. And Dr. Pertell, you and I can meet offline on this. I'm not sure I can offer the same type of extra credit for those who can't attend because I have 300 students. And I'm not sure I can grade, interview material for 300 students. But I will find something comparable, and you and I can talk about how many points you're giving. I want to make sure it's equitable across the classes. So
Yeah, great.
that's fantastic. Congratulations, Clint. So we have about 10 or 12 more minutes left. If there's something you want, and by the way, I'm actually really excited about that, Clint. I've got to make sure I get that. That's good information. If there's something you want, please ask, because one of the things I'm about to do is I'm about to open up one of the lectures. It's obviously on your test, but I'm noticing that people may not have read through some of this, and it's going to help on your template, okay? Dr. Pertell, did you use the same or similar finance and econ supplement with your class? Have they seen it?
They do have it. It is not the same test. My group will not take the same test that you're taking this time. So I provided a video to my group of exactly how to prepare. Part of it is your lecture slides.
Okay.
But they will not take your same test.
Oh, no, understood. And we're doing this to be consistent, folks. That's what we're trying to do, is make sure there's consistency in this. But I'm going to actually take the next 5 or so minutes, and so some of it may be somewhat less relevant to your students, Dr. Pertell. That's where I'm going with this, okay? So let me share. So in my class, we had an economic value and finance primer discussion. And, one of the things that Dr. Pertell and I have both is, and we hope we're bringing this across to you in a helpful way. We've actually gone and done this stuff for decades. And I've been very blessed to be able to do this at some of the highest levels and even on Wall Street. So please believe us when we say to you that some of the language about value really does matter. And if you get out there and you're working on a strategy team or a consulting engagement, and they want you to go value a project, and that doesn't have to be just economics, which is what we're focused on here, but is this a good or bad idea? If you don't know why people use cash flows instead of accounting, or what do they mean by a CAGR, or when you start getting into people's utility and economic values and things, people are going to look at you funny. And this is what you will do as a CEO and a CFO and a COO, because people are bringing you deals and projects all the time. In my business, of course, it was, are we going to build a new refinery, a new power plant? Are we going to build pipelines? Are we going to build an LNG facility? These are billion-dollar projects. You have to be able to evaluate them, not just on the logic and the politics but on the economics of it. And same thing with, and by the way, Dr. Patel, thank you so much. People don't know what corporate development means. Okay, corporate development is a euphemism that basically says deals, transactions, right? Mergers, acquisitions, joint ventures. That's what people, so if you have, and I've served in this role at various times, Executive Vice President of Corporate Development. So we were the deal guys, right? That went out there and were looking. So that's what corporate development means. I'm going off on this because this stuff actually is relevant. You will see it. I'm not going to do the whole lecture with you. You can go back and do it, but please understand why we were trying to go through accounting versus economic value. Okay, what is utility? What are the trade-offs between alternatives and the risk profiles? I went through this, and it's kind of interesting, and Dr. Patel, I'm sure you know this, but people I don't think realize that over the long term, the average growth rate, right, that you can get in the stock market, the average annual return is about 7% pre-tax, right? So sometimes people get these heady things, oh, they made a 200% return. That ain't normal. That ain't common. And over time, that's not, how things typically play out. So know what your benchmarks are. And then WACC and hurdle rates. You're going to see questions on this, folks. You need to know what a WACC is. You need to know how to calculate. It is not difficult. It's a weighted average. It's just a weighted average, okay? And then finally, I'm really driving to these last few pages. You need to know how to solve an NPV and an IRR. I personally have a preference towards IRRs first. If you give me an NPV and it has a positive NPV of $100,000, I think I put this in my lectures, at least, Dr. Patel, I have no idea if that's good or bad. From my industry, that was horrible, right? Because if you're making $1 billion investment and you're only getting $100,000 positive NPV back, you're barely hitting your nut, right? And so I need to know what the internal rate of return is first and foremost, and then I can compare that. Does that hit my hurdle rate? Does that at least cover my WACC? These language things is why we provided this supplement. There's some important stuff here. These last 3 pages, we show you how to calculate IRR and NPV in Excel. Here is the equation. Here is the equation, okay? And now these numbers are just made up, but we walk you through how to do that so that there really are no questions. I wish I could learn how to do a YouTube video and show you while I'm doing it on Excel. I will get better at that. But we actually verbally tried to walk you through how to solve those. And then these are the last 2 pages we just spoke to. This is information right out of a publicly available Yahoo Finance. And people are asking, where can I get historical data? Well, here's one place, and we actually gave it to you. We're actually giving it to you, right? You can go back and get 2015 and 14, that'd be great too. Annual reports, 10Ks, lots of online sites, but don't give me the full 12-page income statement and footnotes, because that's way too much. We're trying to condense it for you, okay? How do you do a CAGR, compound annual growth rate? We're showing you here. I'm just bringing it to your attention because we really are trying to actually show you. We're actually trying to give you some data to show you how we calculated it, okay? And then finally, This is what we're going to be asking you for in project 3, with an emphasis on explaining why you came up with your purple numbers. Okay? I'm bringing that up because that's not in your textbook. I'm bringing it up because the last couple pages are immediately relevant to some of the questions asked in your template. I'm bringing it up because the last couple of pages are immediately relevant to what will be in Team Project 3. That's the reason I took a few minutes on that just now. And Dr. Patel, I know you have a different test, and I know that you didn't have the same quite material. So, forgive me for your students if I wasn't, hopefully wasn't wasting 5 minutes of their time, but
No, it's still relevant, still very relevant.
Okay.
It's not the same test. We might have some of the same questions, but
Okay.
it's not the same test. So,
Yeah.
so there are questions related to the finance supplement, and it was
Okay.
provided to them.
well, folks, it's the last 5 minutes. And again, I have a hard stop. So I'm literally just going to give you a chance to ask a question. And Nicole, I will put that out there. I've written a note to myself to put that citation page out on Canvas. Thank you. Okay, template is due no later than Tuesday at midnight. Highly suggest you get your first draft done by tomorrow or Saturday. Then, go step back, grab a donut, a pizza, a beer, a Coke, a tonic, whatever you guys, take an hour off, and then come back to it and read it in continuity. Make sure that there's consistency of content, that there's a robust answer, and that your grammar is good and complete. And at the end of next week, we have our exam number 2, and then you will have more time. One final thing I'm going to do here. You had 3 weeks here. You're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks before the next one. Why? You have to do a lot more. Next one's going to be a lot more work. Okay, there's just more stuff. Okay. I'm going to give the 10-second countdown, Dr. Patel.
And those 10 seconds, I'll just reiterate, once you get deliverable 2 turned in, don't wait until the week that deliverable 3 is due to start. Get started on deliverable 3 as soon as you can.
Deliverable 3 will be, I'm not trying to overdo it, but it's more work. It'll crush you if you leave it to the last week.
Yeah.
Everybody, thank you so much. Stay healthy, stay well, take care of your fellow man and woman, go vote, be good corporate citizens when you become executives and all that stuff. Thank you so much. And thanks everybody for the nice comments, and have a phenomenal weekend. See you later, Dr. Patel.
See you later.